what are the steps then for finding brokers, and how do you?
Yeah. So I mean, the step for finding the broker is, there's a couple things. You can Google them. That's fine. So as a way of identifying brokers, Google is fine. That's not the issue. The issue is really how you approach them and what you do before you approach them. So I have kind of like a 5-step process that has worked for me. I mean, I don't need it anymore because I'm established, so I can just call up a broker and it's, but when you're starting out, this 5-step process really helps you just get your foot in the door. And the 5 steps, we can go through them in a little more detail, but the 5 steps are: first, you've got to get enough education so that you sound like you know what you're talking about. Like if you've gone to like a seminar and you're like, that's not enough. You really have to kind of steep yourself in this for a little while to really be able to know all the important concepts and to speak the talk, right? The next thing that you have to do is set yourself up so that anybody who Googles you, right? This is what, when somebody reaches out to you and you don't know who they are, the first thing you do is like Google them, right? Mm-hmm. Or you're going to go on LinkedIn or whatever. You want to put yourself in the other person's shoes and make sure that when someone Googles you, the impression that they're going to come away with is this guy is in the business, right? That is step 2. Step 3 is you need to form a team of people. And that doesn't mean, I'm not talking about partners in your business. I'm talking about the professionals you work with who, if you can communicate the fact that you are working with them to the broker, are going to make the broker think, oh, this guy is in the business, and also make them, hopefully those are people with reputations such that the broker is going to say, oh, Jonathan is working with this guy. Oh, okay, then he must be legitimate, right? Because that guy would only work with someone who is legitimate. And then the next step is you need to prepare a set of materials that shows, who you are, your background, your business, the kinds of properties you're looking at, who this team is, et cetera, right? Get that all ready to go. And then the very last step is reaching out to the broker. And the way that you want to reach out to the broker is get a personal introduction. Personal introduction is probably the key to most things in life that you want to accomplish. But with brokers, it's really the key. The difference between cold calling a broker, cold emailing a broker, and getting introduced by one of those professionals on your team is just night and day. That will solve about 90% of your problems right there. Frankly, you could even flub some of this other stuff that I've already mentioned and get the personal introduction and get better results than you're getting right now by trying to cold email people or cold call them. Walking with a warm introduction is just gold. And then before you actually meet them, so now we're sort of getting, I said there's a 5-step process, there's a couple more steps, but before you actually meet them, then you want to send them those materials that you put together, right? Because that's going to answer a lot of their questions. And it's also going to reinforce in their mind that that you're in the business, that you know what you're looking for. But if at all possible, you want to meet them in person rather than doing a phone call. Phone calls will work fine, but there is nothing like saying to somebody, I'm flying into your city for 2 days, and I would like to meet you while I'm there. People will make time to meet with you when you say that. I mean, just as an aside on this point, I live in New York City, but there was a period about 20 years ago where I moved to Boston to take a job, and I wasn't really happy there and didn't really know anybody. So I was coming back to New York City almost every weekend to see my friends. And like the friends who, you go 6 months without seeing when you're both living in the same city because you could see each other anytime. Like basically, every weekend I'd call them up and say, hey, I'm driving down from Boston, let's hang out. And they would always say yes, because so there was something, both scarce and unusual. They're like, oh, he's only here for the weekend, even though I was here last weekend, the weekend before that. Like there's just something about like somebody saying, I'm traveling to where you are. Can we get together while I'm there? That creates a scarcity about you being there that makes them want to meet you. So, that really, really helps a lot if you're able to do that. So I don't know if you want to go through the steps in a little more detail or not, but
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's do that. So you mentioned education being the first one. So like,
So I mean, look, there's lots of ways you can educate yourself. There's tons of books out there, mentoring programs. I mean, I have a mentoring program. Everybody has a mentoring program. You can go through one of those programs and really learn But it's really important to really like know what you're doing before you start talking to brokers. And that, I think at a minimum, that means learning the lingo and like learning how to underwrite a deal and learning the market. So you're not going to a broker, when the market cap is 5, and you don't go to brokers and say, hey, I'm looking for a 9 cap deal. They're just going to laugh at you, right? And they're not going to take you seriously. And I see this, frankly. I mean, I run a big Facebook group, and I see this in my Facebook group where people post like, hey, I'm looking for, big 6 market deal, trading at a 10 cap. Who's got one? I'm like, no one's got one because it doesn't exist. It just showed you just proved yourself to be, ignorant about the market. So you don't want to do that in a Facebook group. It's fine. Don't do that with a broker. They won't take you seriously. All right. Mm-hmm. So that's really, really important. The second thing is about, making sure that anyone who Googles you is going to believe you're in the business. There are certain things you can do. First of all, you got to take care of your LinkedIn profile if you've got one. It's got to have something about real estate on there. You may have a job, and I know people have said to me in the past, like, oh, what if my boss sees this? You can still do something to your profile to make a broker believe that you're at least like a serious part-time investor, right? You don't have to be a full-time investor. You just need to be a serious investor who can close a deal, right? So that doesn't mean that, like if you work at Google, that the broker is going to say, oh, he works at Google. If you work at Google, but you can show that you're in the real estate business, then you want to show that. The other thing is, and this is right up your alley, and this wasn't planned, but have a website. Like, website is one of the best ways to show that you're in the business. People don't go to the effort of putting together a website unless they're serious. And I think it's really, frankly, at this point, it's very difficult to claim that you're in business and not have a website. Right? That is really, really important. And another critical thing is and you're going to have to do this anyway if you have a website, register a domain and get an email address with your business name on it, right? Don't reach out to a broker with, Jonathan Twombly at Gmail, right? Todd Heitner at Gmail. Like, all that does is show this guy can't spend $14.99 a year to get a branded email, right? He's not really in the business. So when you're in a situation where every impression is important, why let that be the thing that makes somebody dismiss you as not in the business, right? So get the website, get the branded domain. Heck, at least, I mean, not to throw you under the bus, but like, get the branded domain at least. Like, even if you can't get the website, just go get yourself branded email, right? Don't send it from AOL or Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever else is out there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of step 2. Part of step 3 is you want to put together a professional team, right? And that is your accountant, your closing lawyer, your property management company, maybe engineers or architects, maybe not quite as important, but certainly those kind of 3, because now the reason for those is like what I was talking about before, especially if they're local, right? And you want to have them be local if at all possible. Maybe not the accounting firm so much, but the lawyer has to be local anyway. Property management company obviously has to be local. And mortgage brokerage firm. You want to have those on what's going to be at step 4 on your documentation, because for 2 reasons. One is that it's going to show, again, the legitimacy, right? It's going to show that you're really in the business, and it's also going to show that, like, hey, if I'm a broker and I show you a deal, you're not now scrambling to find a lawyer, find an accountant, find a property management company, find a mortgage broker. Like, you're all set to go. You just have to make a couple phone calls and you're ready to move, right? If you need a credit partner, if you need somebody to do the balance sheet for you, put them on as a partner in your business, right? Also, if you do run into the proof of funds issue, that person may be able to just give you proof of funds, right? Even if they don't ultimately give you the money, they can just show that somebody has money, right? And that's enough. But you want to have those people like documented so that when you show this to a broker, they're like, oh, okay, this guy is ready to go. But the other, probably even more important reason for having those people lined up ahead of time is that they're the ones who are going to introduce you to brokers, right? They're the ones who have the reputation in the local market that's going to be able to say to the broker, hey, this is my client, please talk with them, right? And no broker is going to be able to turn that down. If you have an introduction from like a respectable property management company in the market where this property manager says to the broker, this is my client, he's looking for deals, they can't turn that down. They can't turn it down because their reputation will suffer with that property manager. They want to please that property manager, right? They have to keep things smooth. It's, whatever. They're not going to turn that down, right? So that's what's really important. Next, you have like a deck that you put together. It doesn't have to be very long, but it should include a few important pieces. Your bio, if you have partners, their bios, that list of people that you're working with, what kinds of properties you're looking for in a fair amount of detail, right? And the other things that I think put in there that really distinguish you are if you have a list of due diligence materials, like what you need for initial due diligence. So that, because I think most starting out people don't know what they need for due diligence because they haven't thought about it that much. And this shows the broker that you actually understand how to evaluate a deal, right? So you should have your initial materials in there. Now, one thing about setting up this deck, the way most people set up their decks is wrong. I mean, in business, in the whole world, which is that they put their team last. And the reason that that's wrong is because when somebody gets a deck, the first thing that they are thinking about, well, who the hell is this person? They have a doubt in their mind about the credibility of the deck while they're reading it until they find out who the person is. So oftentimes they will flip to the back first to find out who this is before they read the rest of it. And what you should do is have an executive summary, like one paragraph right up front. Then the very next thing should be you and your team. And the next thing should be who you're working with. And then you get to like what you're looking for and stuff. And that will psychologically create a glide path for whoever's reading it. And then, as I said, the last thing is that personal introduction. After you've gotten all that other stuff out of the way, then get that personal introduction from your team. And if you can't get a personal introduction, you can try going in cold, but you can also try to manufacture a warm introduction. And the way you do that is by getting on LinkedIn and figuring, well, first of all, you could get a warm introduction if you get on LinkedIn and you find who you know that knows this person. The reason you should do this is because, and this has happened to me, you may get lucky and find out that you actually have like a personal friend who knows this person rather than somebody in the business. Those are even better for warm introductions, frankly, than somebody who's like a property manager in the market. If you can find, or Facebook, maybe you can find this too. If you can find a personal friend of theirs to introduce you, like that's like golden. That's like the golden ticket right there, right, for introductions. But if you can't find any connection, then try to like reach out to them on LinkedIn first and just establish the connection with them. Most brokers accept a lot of LinkedIn invitations. If you've got some real estate hook, and this is another reason to have the real estate on your LinkedIn profile, if you have some real estate hook on there, then they're going to accept, they're more likely to accept your invitation. And once you've got that connection with them, then you can try to build it, before you actually reach out to them and propose a meeting or talk about deals. But that's the process. As I said, if you want to go deeper into this, I have a course just on this, very inexpensive, but you don't even need the course if you just follow what I've just outlined here.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. That's awesome.